Thank you to Father Sinclair and the Port Arthur International Seafarer Center for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'd like to acknowledge Paul Beard, Chairman for the Sabine Neches Navigation District, as well as Captain Tooney with the U.S. Coast Guard, who's sitting over there with Paul. Thank you, Larry, for picking me out of the crowd so I could embarrass myself in front of a lot of people. Yeah. Well, the Navigation District pulled me deep from the bullpen. It's like the Houston Astros. It gets a little shaky the farther you go back after Giles, but I can assure you I am the least qualified mariner to be up here and address you today. My career in that aspect was abruptly halted when I was 11 at summer camp. When the sunfish, the sail knocked me out of the boat, and I decided at that point that my future pursuits would be land-based. But what I lack in skill on that end, I will make up with passion today when we talk about energy in our waterway. I'm going to call an audible here. I know we're talking about the status of the waterways, but since Vernon Pierce is not here and that was his topic, I'm picking my own topic, which is energy dominance, which is a term that you've probably heard quite frequently for the past year. Actually, my wife is assisting me. She's over here. She is clicking the slides for me, so honey, please change the slide. So in June of 2017, President Trump, along with a number of cabinet secretaries and Vice President Mike Pence, gathered at the Department of Energy to unveil his latest policies on energy and trade. Up there it says unleashing American energy, but in the quotes below you can see that a specific phrase really stuck out, and it's one that he liked and he's continued to use, and that's energy dominance. It's going past American energy independence and creating energy dominance worldwide. And you probably ask yourself, what are the components of energy dominance? And if you click the next slide. There are really three key components to that. There's the independence aspect of it, there's energy security, and lastly, influence. Now, independence is self-explanatory. It's weaning ourselves off of energy imports and relying on foreign supply for our domestic needs. Energy security, very similar to independence. When that is achieved, you have a more stable market, you have a more stable supply, and you're using the energy abundance here at home. And lastly, our influence, and that's in the form of energy exports. And that's something that we are just beginning to realize almost 10 years after we thought we were going to be in short supply of a lot of our energy resources here. And that influence is yielding many benefits for us today. It comes in the form of geopolitical benefits, environmental benefits, and it's something that you're going to see continue, especially on our waterway. If you'll click the next slide, please. Southeast Texas, as we know, is the birthplace of the modern oil and gas industry, and it is the frontier for U.S. energy exports. We've known for a while now, courtesy of Cheniere, that we are the number one exporter of liquefied natural gas in the United States. That is not going to change anytime soon, but as of October 2017, our waterway became the nation's largest exporter of crude oil. That title was formerly held by Corpus Christi. And I will say this, Cheniere, I'd like to thank you because we use the collective we a lot when we talk about LNG exports, but it's really you. So thank you for letting the Navigation District do that. And we'll go to the next slide, please. Here's a little bit of a breakdown of how we got to number 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the respective fields there. LNG exports in 2017. This is a six-month snapshot, I should say, where LNG exports, Cheniere accounted for 99% of all U.S. LNG exports. Another great fact about that is in 2017, correct me if I'm wrong, speak up, is that we exported to 25 different countries all over the world for varying reasons. We are touching emerging markets in Southeast Asia and India, where they are desperate for clean energy and abundant energy. And we are also exporting to countries like Poland, former Soviet bloc countries that are looking for a reliable, stable supply of energy from an ally. If you go down the list, you can see that 39%, we account for 39% of crude oil exports in the United States. And we're also number one at petcoke, but for some odd reason that doesn't get the fanfare and attention that the other two get. So given all of this, and given the unprecedented level of private investment, the room to grow and develop on the waterway, and our position in relation to the Panama Canal, which was recently expanded to accommodate mostly the largest carrier, LNG carrier, I'm pretty confident to say that our waterway will continue to lead the nation on energy exports. Click the next slide. And this is really where our waterway takes new importance to the Trump administration and to our nation's economy, is that energy exports are a sure way to improve the balance of trade. You hear a lot of talk about the trade deficits, and in fact, you'll hear the Trump administration in their negotiations with China and other countries on these tariff issues at present mention this balance of trade and our deficit to some of these countries. In 2016, the Sabine-Neches waterway became a net exporter, which means we no longer ran a trade deficit strictly from our waterway. And you can't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that that is the first time in its history that we did not run a deficit to our trade balance. And it continues to grow, and that's largely on the back of energy exports. 2016 was also the year the Cheniere Commission's first LNG cargo. Another interesting note about this slide here is that the 4 ports or waterways you see at the top of the list that have a positive margin are all on the Gulf Coast, and that's related to, in many ways, our energy industry, as well as its approximation to the Panama Canal. Well, actually, one last note on the previous slide. No, it's the next one. Okay, sorry, honey. Just checking, just testing you. She's good. She's really good. Our actual exports for 2017 amounted to $20.5 billion, whereas our imports were a little over $11.5 billion, for a balance of trade surplus of roughly $9 billion. If you look into the projections for 2026, our projected balance of trade surplus by 2026 will be nearly $62 billion just from our waterway, based on our energy exports. That is a 10-year swing when we thought we were going to have to import a lot of our natural gas from foreign countries. And we're now exporting an abundance of that. And just to give you a better idea of that number, the $62 billion surplus that we're projecting, our third largest trading partner at the moment is Mexico. And we have our rough trade deficit with Mexico in 2017 was $71 billion. So the Sabine-Neches waterway by itself almost accounts for that in 2026. That's pretty staggering. Now it really gets to the core of the speech. If you hit the next slide here, or not this one, jump the gun. You can go to the next one. We've seen this unprecedented growth, and it will continue. There's no other waterway on the Gulf Coast that is situated for growth as we are. We have 22,000 acres of developable properties along this waterway. There's no other waterway in the country that has that available to it. We have the finest workforce as well. And what you'll see is we're going to continue to drive job creation, economic growth, and we're going to continue to improve trade balance. And that's being recognized nationwide, and the Trump administration is seeing that as well. So you'll hit the next slide. What I want you to walk away with today is that energy dominance, next slide, starts here. always started in Southeast Texas. We have always been the pioneers for the energy industry in this country, and we will continue to do that. And so, this is an absolute no-no when you're talking to a large audience, but I need a little participation from you all. I want to hear you say on 3, energy dominance starts here, so you drive it into your head. 1, 2, 3.
Energy dominance starts here.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I will make you do it again. But I am not from this area. I'm actually from Connecticut, Admiral Rodriguez, so it took me a long time to blend in. Thankfully, I married a wonderful lady from Southeast Texas who helped me with that. But this area is simply astounding. And before I moved here from Austin, and before I moved here, I had no idea what this area possessed. And very few people do outside of this area. Fortunately, through some pretty solid effort from the Navigation District, friends in DC understand the importance, the strategic importance of this waterway. But it's our time to step out, really, and talk about energy dominance and why we're so important and vital to this nation. And it extends it's far beyond our exports. I know our friends from Colonial are here as well. Their pipeline that reaches all the way up to New York supplies 3 million barrels a day. It's every major airport, every major military installation. And during Tropical Storm Harvey, when our refineries were down and the Colonial Pipeline actually shut down, the entire eastern seaboard of the United States suffered. And it rested on our capacity and our capability to do what we do best. And so, that's the biggest message here, is to take energy dominance with you, because our friends in Houston, Port of Houston, our friends in Port of Corpus Christi are really angry that we found that catchphrase, and it lines up perfectly with the Trump administration. So, shout out from the mountaintops. I did have some videos to share with you, however, there is no sound for the computer. The Navigation District does have a YouTube page now that you can go watch some of these videos. It's all around energy dominance. Just type in SabineNatchez-Navigation-District.com, or Sabine Natchez Navigation District into YouTube, and you can watch some of them. Again, I want to thank you all for this. I won't take any more of your time. It's been a pleasure. Thank you again to Father Sinclair and the Port Arthur Seafarer Center. Everyone have a good night. Drive safely.